When you black out, the body kind of knows what it's doing, so it triggers a lot of self-protective reflexes, like your throat shuts down so lungs don't get flooded, and all these good things. So the safety actually has a time to provide the assistance.
The search continues for a Seminole County man who disappeared while diving in the Florida Keys. Well, Meredith, the Coast Guard continued its search for that missing diver
when he blacked out and drowned.
Well, the Sarasota man is on life support.
Also breaking right now, searchers have found the body of an Orlando man who went missing while diving in the Florida Keys.
I had my first blackout experience about 2 months ago. I've been diving for about 8 years. So my day started off, I would say usual, right before getting out in the water. When we started warming up in some shallow spots, about 20 feet. Usually it takes me about, I would say, maybe 10-15 minutes to start feeling like I'm settling in, letting go, relaxing. And this time around, it wasn't like that. I felt a little tight around my chest. I felt like I was gripping my gun too tight. And then the frustration kicked in, because it was actually a very beautiful day out there. And went ahead and moved on to deeper wrecks. On this one wreck, as we're getting towed over there, we come across a little school of barracudas. I decided, you know what, I'm gonna go after one. I started breathing up in the surface. I actually felt my hands go a little numb, a little tingling sensation. At the moment, I thought maybe it was just me getting pulled by the boat that was rushing the blood out of my hands, and that was the reason for that, but didn't think much of it. I decided to go down, and on my way down, I would say the last 15-20 feet dropping just felt real good out of nowhere. I held on to the wreck. I looked inside the wreck. The kudas were still in there, and since I felt so good and I felt like my bottom time felt great out of nowhere, I decided just to hold on down there a little longer. Well, I don't know how long I was down there, but I guess I got a little carried away with that, and then I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go after one of these kudas I had seen inside the wreck. And I start pulling myself along the bow. As I'm pulling myself along the bow, my contractions start kicking in, and felt my heart speeding up a bit after the contractions. So I kind of sped up my shot without really taking an aim, and just tried shooting one of the kudas in the school, and I completely missed. The school just banged up against the wreck. They started going everywhere. I guess that just got my heart rate going, and with my contractions kicking in. Right before taking the shot, another reason I sped up my shot is I started to get like tunnel vision. So I pulled the trigger. I hear the banging up of the wreck. I hear the shot of the gun go off, and I hear like all chopped up. And I start kicking towards the surface, and I felt like I was kicking and I was never gonna break the surface. And that's pretty much the last thing I remember. The next thing I remember was like I'm taking in water, and I'm kicking to fight. Like if I woke up from a nightmare, that's what I kind of can describe it as. I was like, I just was kicking for up in the air and just trying to grab onto something like if I was fighting. And I remember started coughing up water, and I was really disoriented, and the first thing that came into my head was, you blacked out, and I looked around, there was no one around me. And the next thought after that is that you blacked out, you're dead. And it was a real scary feeling, man. I remember looking around, and the water was flat calm. The color started to like come back through, like just burning through. And I couldn't believe it, man. I was like, I couldn't believe that I had blacked out, man. It was an awful feeling, you know, that feeling that I woke up and there was nobody there. It happened in a blink of an eye.
JD's blackout, at the other hand, was not properly handled. He was one of the few lucky guys that I've heard through the whole long time that I've been doing this sport that just survived by sheer luck. This doesn't happen very often. What probably happened with him, he knew that he pushed on a dive. That's why he, jump out of the water so high. People go in a panic, start kicking really hard, and it actually increases the chance of somebody blacking out, because when you get your body out of the water so high, the gravity just pulls all the blood out of your head. So even if you have oxygenated blood, you may black out because simply there's no circulation through your brain. So it could happen to him as well. Maybe that would not happen if he just did not panic. And he fell back in the water. But what probably happened during that surfacing, the short time that he surfaced, he managed to take a breath of air. And when you take the breath of air, that very fresh oxygen you get in your lungs, depending on your blood pressure and your heart rate at that moment, it may take up to 30 seconds for that fresh oxygen to make it to your brain. So essentially your brain is still holding a breath even after you surface. So he may feel unconscious because brain was low on oxygen, or maybe lack of circulation because of how high he got out of the water. And a couple seconds later, 10-15 seconds later, that oxygenated part of blood made it to the brain. And then again, he was very lucky, because if this happens, you had a second, two, to kind of realize what's happening, get your face out of the water and take a breath and start supplying a new oxygen in your system. If that doesn't happen, you're done.
We started in like 50 foot, the first couple dives, the first couple spots.
First two spots were like 50.
Shot a few nice mangroves. Day was going good, not seeing much grouper yet, except the one that was lost. When we got to that spot, I think it was even the spot before, I said to him, because I was pushing my limits a little bit, and I said to him, hey, let's kind of stay close, because I knew I was, for me it was a lot for me at the time. On the dive where it happened, just went down as usual. Saw a nice, it was either a really big mangrove or a cubera. I don't know what it was, to be honest with you, but it was huge, and it started swimming away on the ledge. It tucked underneath, so I kind of went down to the sand and just kind of waited, hoping he might poke his head out or something. And I guess I just waited a little too long. It felt really good. Like, I didn't feel like a lot of contraction. I didn't feel like felt that euphoric, like, felt really good. I could stay there a while. And another snapper comes swimming across the ledge, and I shoot him. Start coming up, maybe 2 kicks into it. I don't remember anything until Justin was looking at him in the face, holding me up. That was probably the last thing I remember.
My initial reaction was, whoa, this is happening, because everybody will see in the video, and I've told James still too, I still feel bad about this part. Like, it took me a while to recognize, what was actually going on. Now watching it, it's like, he's out right there. I watched him come up and get a breath and put his face back in the water and start pulling the fish in. And I remember seeing a pull, and I kind of actually quit looking at him, per se. I looked at his fish, to see if it was going to tear off or something like that. And I looked back at him, and he was just sitting there, still, both hands, like you'll see in the video, on the line. And he's not pulling in the fish. And, it took a second or two, 3 to register. That's not normal. And, I raised my head up out of the water, and when I really recognized something was completely wrong, it was already setting in. But as I saw, you can see it in the video, the way his shoulder raised out of the water, it was very unnatural, very
loss of motor control,
very spastic, yeah.
You all right? on. Come on. Breathe. Look. Breathe. You're alright. You're alright. Just keep breathing. Just keep breathing. Just keep breathing. I watched you. You fell over. It's alright. You good?
Good now.
Okay. Oh, where's your gun? We'll find it. I watched you keel over as you came up, and I was like, that don't look good. And then you're just laying over. I was like, oh fuck.
You know, the deepest thing that I got out of the whole thing, and the thing that scares me the most is, you know, he was answering these things at least with a nod, and you know, his eyes were wide, and he was, to me, coherent. But going back and watching the video with him later, like I said, what scares me the most is when he tells me, like, okay, Justin, I remember right about here.
Yeah, with Justin, it was a loss of motor control, as we call it, samba. It is, in my opinion, actually much more dangerous hypoxic event than blackout. People are always afraid of blackouts because you actually lose a consciousness. But when you black out, the body kind of knows what it's doing, so it triggers a lot of self-protective reflexes, like your throat shuts down so lungs don't get flooded, and all these good things. So the safety actually has a time to provide the assistance. When you have a loss of motor control, the body really doesn't know what it's doing. It's trying to breathe, trying to recover itself from that state, but by the definition, loss of motor control, you have no control over your swimming skills or how high you can keep your airway out of the water. So you can inhale water and start drowning right there. So for that, it's very important to have body always in arm reach of a distance. I know it's challenging, especially spearfishing, right? But always do your best. And what he's seen in a video, it wasn't an ideal distance. And it seemed that his buddy was more preoccupied shooting the snapper on the end of the line than actually looking at his dive buddy. But he made it there on time, and he supported him, and he kept the airway protected. As you could see, when you achieve that, it takes only a couple seconds and the person recovers.